So today James gonna review a book or so.
Oh, bunch of books. Maybe not all
We're
at
gonna
the same
review
sitting.
this awful movie. Well, briefly, because it's not worth really reviewing. Miami Love Affair. If you were wondering what Burt Reynolds is up to, and don't bother watching it. It's the worst movie I've ever seen. So bad. I mean, you can't hire the same people who you hire to do your porn or whatever to make movies with you. It's just, maybe there's some awesome actresses and actors in porn, I don't know, but not in this movie. So anyway, I'm going to be talking about some terpenes.
Just before you move on,
okay.
I want to say that I was kind of, yeah, you can see Bert there on the cover. He's given top billing. I don't know if he deserves it, but yeah, I was saying, man, oh man, like, guy's well preserved. But here's the deal, like, I've been reading this. So this is the Complete Valley of the Kings. So this is where a lot of the kings of the New Kingdom, almost all of them actually, were buried. And so I've been looking at these faces, like here's poor Ramses II. Seti the First looks a little bit, they really did a great job on his face and stuff like that. But, what is this, Merimta or something like that? Yeah, Merimta. Ramses II's son. So, yeah, maybe that's why Burt Reynolds looks well preserved there. But I just thought I'd chuck that in for a little comic relief. It wasn't very good, but, I tried.
Well,
anyway.
If you're wondering what you're having for dinner, you're having, I think it was 6 heads of living lettuce,
okay,
and some ginger in the juice.
Okay.
So that's going to be, you're going to want to chase that.
Be tough, yeah.
And
I want to chase it like with a attack dog, but
okay.
Yeah.
And I gave you some Kalamata olive bread for dessert, whatever, and mangoes for dessert. That's spiralized beets with pasta sauce made out of a bunch of different kinds of tomatoes and fennel bulb and cauliflower, I don't know, some other onion, garlic, basil, oregano.
Okay. So anyway, there's no pasta there, the beets are serving.
No pasta. There's, that's all vegetable and fruit. And we're going to have some fennel seeds
to chew
on for dessert.
Yeah.
And we're having fennel tea, which was given to us, so it's just fennel in there.
Oh, that's mine then, and you've got the fennel tea under the mango.
Under the mango. So I'm going to talk about terpenes. Mango has myrcene in it, which is also, I got this out of a cannabis book that I borrowed recently, and I realized we really don't, well, I have myrcene in my diet because I consume quite a lot of cardamom, actually, especially this fall when I'm having the carrot chai.
Yeah, we should make clear no cannabis. It's just
no.
There we go.
What?
Yeah, no cannabis.
No, I haven't been consuming cannabis, but I have been consuming cardamom.
There we go.
And anyway, and a lot of people consume hops in their beer, and that has myrcene in it. And
well, there you go. So there may be something to be said for beer, right?
Yeah. And thyme and lemongrass and mango also have that. Now, the
and what was that good for, did you say?
Benefits of that: analgesic, antibacterial, anti-diabetic, anti-insomnia, anti-proliferative, anti-inflammatory, anti-mutagenic, anti-psychotic, anti-spasmodic. So there's a lot of benefits to consuming that. And besides thyme, I don't think you get it in your diet, honestly. So
yeah, it might be. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. There is a beautiful blue jay over there. He's not a Toronto blue jay. He's on the ground, right? Do you see him under?
I saw something hopping around there, but I can't see right now.
Wow. Anyway, it's a beautiful blue. It's
yeah, we've had a lot of blue jays. If you want blue jays in your garden, plant sunflowers. They love sunflowers. Yeah. And if
there's 2 of them.
Well, there's been a lot because I planted sunflowers this year, and I managed to scare people away from harvesting the sunflowers, so I got the blue jays.
Yeah.
And now they keep coming around saying, when are you going to give us some more food, Pauline?
These got beautiful color. It's well worth the effort that you expended.
Yes, they're always worth the effort because sunflowers are nice to have in your yard. They look good. And then you get blue jays, which look great.
Yeah.
So anyway, now the terpene of the meal is limonene, which James doesn't get very much of usually anymore. He used to eat a lot of oranges, but he hasn't been able to handle it. And so we're going to try a few things.
GERD, and it comes with the cancer.
Yeah.
And it's just anything acidic going down hurts.
So the sources of limonene are cannabis, oranges, lemons, celery, dill, fennel, lime, nutmeg, and rosemary. And so I guess he would have it occasionally in the rosemary, but honestly...
Well, we have celery every so occasionally.
Yeah, occasionally.
Not as much as I'd like.
Not as much, yeah. We should.
Celery that much.
Well, I'd like it juiced, so we could have a lot of
pretty
celery
good, that juice, but I like, I don't think you like the texture that
No.
much. That's one stringy vegetable that I can put up with. But,
yeah. So we're having fennel in the meal, fennel in the tea, fennel in the pasta.
Yeah.
And fennel in the...
After.
Yeah. So that'll give us lots of limonene. We're going to try that out because the benefits are analgesic, antidepressant, antifungal, antiproliferative, anti-inflammatory, immunostimulant, and gastroesophageal reflux.
See? There, it might help out.
It might help out.
It might.
And
That's
you've given up the oranges, and you have a hard time. I can't get the lime and the lemons into you too easily either. So
well, that's the way it goes.
We'll see if we can get the fennel into you.
The orange just doesn't seem to have enough of that to counteract the acidity, right?
Yeah.
So, that's the way it goes. I mean, there's good things in chocolate, but I think the sugar, especially overrides.
Because yes, I've been eating a lot of chocolate this fall.
Yeah, so have I.
It's not a great idea, but anyway, you go on and talk about your books now. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. So these two. I'm going to have to open them up so you can see the title page because they're library books and they don't have the fancy library. So, Sapaluli Uma, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but we really don't know the pronunciation because this language was revitalized in a certain curious kind of way about 100 years ago, and it had been dead maybe 2,500 years or something like that. Hittite. So this guy was a Hittite king, and his capital was very near the modern-day capital of Turkey. Sapaluli Uma and the Amarna pharaohs. So, and this is by Kenneth A. Kitchen, and lecturer in Egyptian and Coptic at the University of Liverpool. I think he's retired there now, but he was retiring a while back, but he's definitely not shy. At any rate, the Amarna pharaohs would include King Tut and his possible dad, King Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh as they call him. So this is about the key part of this, the core part of it, even though it's he calls it excursus, which is kind of like an appendix or something like that. Does he call it an excursus? He loves that word. He loves them. Fancy words, even though he's proud to boast that he's only got an MA, a master's. At any rate, no, it's not an excursus. It's an outline table of events for the period. Let's see. No, yeah, it's the kind of like the culmination of the book. This is what he's working toward. He's interested in Egyptian chronology, and he's amalgamating Assyrian chronology, Hittite chronology, mainly Hittite chronology, a little bit of Babylonian chronology, and Hurrian chronology. Hurrians were located in present-day Armenia and also in Kurdistan. Yeah, that might be the best way of putting it. And so, yeah, he's got these dates, a high date and a low date for his little analysis and stuff like that. High date 1406, low date 1392. Well, the carbon 14 readings say it is not 1406, roughly 906, something like that, 900 BC. That's what the raw carbon readings would suggest. And how do I know? Yeah, we'll find here, we're going through several pages of his analysis. Yeah, here, King Tut. He's got King Tut dated. Let me see, his first year. Let's say his last year. 9th year, Tutankhamun. That's his last attested year. 1353 BC. Yeah, okay, we've got stuff from his tomb, and we've radiocarbon read it, and they wanted to misread it and misread it and misread it, but it's not 1353 BC. One reading was roughly 900 BC, another was 850 BC. On Assyrian data, it would be closer to King Tut would have died almost exactly 358 BC. So yeah, almost exactly 500 years too much in Egyptian chronology, but this guy's only willing to accept maybe 1400 years discrepancy between a high and a low chronology. You know, like his chronologies are high, as in high on life, or maybe I don't think he'd be high on chemicals. He's a what would I call him, evangelical Christian and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, it's a fairly valuable kind of thing, you know, because you've got the stuff that he draws his very bad conclusions on, so you can actually go through the stuff and maybe come up with some better conclusions. Now, this is old and in the way, not exactly in the way. It's copyright 1962, and he says it's based on work that he was doing around 1959. So 59 would be exactly, what, 60 years ago. So, but you know, sadly, Egyptology hasn't changed much. You know, like they're still recidivists, sad to say, when it comes to you know, like basically not taking other traditions into account. The tradition that I've used, and it's actually a modern tradition. It's been dug up by archaeologists and stuff like that. The tradition the Egyptologists use is a tradition that's over 2,000 years old. So yeah, that's really a tradition. The tradition I use is not a tradition. It's stuff dug up by archaeologists, and it's contemporary accounts. It's not stuff that's been handed down from generation through generation, and ultimately through the church fathers. The Egyptian king list, that's what happened. It was passed down. It's over 2,000 years old, and it exists in, I guess you could say, 5 different recensions, and they all disagree with each other in terms of kings' reign lengths, the names of kings, and the number of kings in each dynasty. But that's the backbone they use, and sad to say, they've got a interesting looking corpse because the backbone's just all out of kilter. So this thing I was showing you a little bit earlier, the complete Valley of the Kings, and you know, it's about as complete as I've ever run across. It's something that comes in popular, semi-popular format. This, as well as the other one, came to the University of Lethbridge Library. Thank you, University of Lethbridge Library. You actually got some reasonably good books. So yeah, this has got a very nice picture of, I've been trying to memorize where, not so much a picture, but a map or a plan of where the major kings' tombs were, right? And then there are tombs of nobles and stuff like that. So I've been trying to memorize all of these sorts of things because it's important. You know, here's maybe the most important tomb, Ramses the 11th. His tomb right there, right? The big trouble is, you know, like Ramses the 11th was the last king of the 20th dynasty of Egypt, and Ramses the 11th they've got no mummy for, and they know that he was never buried in this tomb. This tomb was never used for a burial. So why would we really think there was someone called Ramses, you know, that we number the 11th? Why wouldn't we just say, well, he was another one of the Ramses, the ones that preceded him? They say he was the last of them all. And what's important about that is Ramses the 11th is supposed to segue his reign into so he comes at the end of the 20th dynasty according to the conventional interpretation of the tradition. And you know, the trouble is his reign segues into the 21st dynasty. But if he's another one of the Ramses, then the 21st dynasty is at the same time as the 20th dynasty. Oh, Houston, we've got problems. And what was that?
You can sit down.
Yeah, I'm just showing them. So yeah, Ramses the 11th was actually used by the workmen who were digging these tombs and decorating them so fantastically. There's some fantastic decorations in here. You can see here some of the decorations and stuff like that. It took them a long time to prepare a tomb for the pharaohs. Oftentimes pharaohs predeceased the finishing of the tomb, so they had to hurry it up and bury the dude and get on to the next pharaoh's tomb. Especially with these Ramses dudes. Anyway, Ramses the 11th, they figure ruled for parts of, I think it's something like 27 years. And I'm going, well, like if he's another one of the Ramses, he could be Ramses II, who ruled parts of 67 years. But during the reign of Ramses the 11th, there are, there are accounts of tomb robbers people are robbing tombs, including Ramses II's tomb. Yeah, that just wouldn't work, so it's not Ramses II. But, could it have been Ramses III who ruled parts of 32 years? Darn tootin'. Ramses XI didn't exist. It's just like when we look at Ramses II, who ruled parts of 67 years, and you read an enumeration of all the different names he used, it goes into multiple pages. He used dozens and dozens of names. So why wouldn't Ramses III, who ruled almost half the length of time that Ramses II did, why wouldn't he use dozens and dozens of names, including the name they interpret as Ramses XI?
The camera can see them.
It doesn't matter. At any rate, I'm just, there you go. See, this is it. Anyway, it's got this wonderful sort of thing. It's got, it's got fact files on, various tombs and whether there was a mummy, not identified. So this would be for Amen-Messe, right? KV10. Amen-Messe, they don't know when he ruled. Well, here's the deal. Amen-Messe ruled around the time, they figured during the time of Mer-Emta, was the son who succeeded Ramses the second, one of the many, it looks as though dozens of sons Ramses II had, and many of them predeceased Ramses II. At any rate, Amen-Messe, they're going, when did he rule? Well, if we read the account of Mer-Emta's reign, and it's just like piecemeal and stuff like that, it looks as though he had to go to what the Greeks called Ethiopia. Well, Ethiopia is in present-day Sudan. That's not Egypt. Well, what happened there? Who took over? Well, they've got no clue. Here's the deal. Mer-Emta records in his 5th year getting back into Egypt and beating up people they call Libyans. Yeah, the Libyans dressed like Assyrians. They had names of Assyrians. They had names that are Assyrian royal names. And the analysis that I've done indicates that the names of the places that are recorded for these so-called Libyans were alternative names for Assyrian capital cities. So you can call them Libyan, you can lie, but they're actually Assyrians. And so Mer-Emta is fighting a guy called Marwai. It's just MR, that's all we're dealing with. And you really can't find an Assyrian royal name that has MR in it. Except when you find Tiglath-Pileser III, you find out one of his nicknames was Maru. I believe it means son or something like that. So he's fighting Tiglath-Pileser. But the big trouble is Mer-Emta goes down roughly 1200 BC, 1250 BC, depending on the crazy high as a kite dating as they've got. But, Tiglath-Pileser, he's stomping around there. Here's what he says. I conquered Egypt to its farthest border. And what the Egyptologists say, it can only be to the nearest border. No, he said to the farthest border. See what you can do with that, Egyptologists. See what you can do with that. That is precious. When the Assyrians record that, you don't go dismissing it. Just out of hand, just because it doesn't fit your chronology. Or whatever. Your mindset. Tiglath-Pileser says he conquered Egypt to the farthest border, and that would be roughly 734 AD, which would be Mer-Emta's 2nd year. In his 5th year, Mer-Emta is recording kicking this guy, Marwai, who would be Maru Tiglath-Pileser III. He kicks him out. Why? Why 731? Well, Tiglath-Pileser III, 731, he's dealing with Babylonia. He wasn't able to fight a war on 2 fronts. So he had to back out of Egypt, and he got stomped by Mer-Emta. But that didn't last that terribly long. At any rate, this is valuable stuff. It's conventional and all that sort of stuff. But you can actually find out who these dudes are. The nice thing is, in the 19th year I was mentioning of Ramses the 11th, something weird happens. It's a repetition of births, which they figure is a Renaissance era. What happened? Well, when you actually start counting down from Ramses the third, if he's Ramses the third, you start counting down. It looks as though he started ruling 719 BC, not some 1200 BC. When you start counting down, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, and then you take 10 years off of that, 701, what the hey happened? Well, like Sennacherib of Assyria, he records stomping the Egyptians, capturing their princes. Those would at least theoretically be the sons of Ramses III. So what happens? Ramses III would become at the very least an Assyrian vassal. Yeah, I'm going to do whatever you say. Yeah. And so the Assyrians, there was an Assyrian king of Egypt at that point in time, in the northern part, and Ramses had to allow him to come down to Thebes, his capital, the southern capital, and put up a big victory monument celebrating the defeat of the Assyrians over, not the Egyptians, but over Palestinians, because Palestinians were a conventional enemy of the Assyrians. And the amazing thing is, we've got the record. The record in Egypt is actually more detailed than the record of this campaign that ended up with the Egyptians and also the so-called Ethiopians, the really Sudanese, getting defeated by the Assyrians. It's more detailed in the middle of Egypt than it is in the middle of Assyria. But here's the thing, this is Egyptologists at work. The Egyptologists look at this account of this Assyrian monarch. They say he's Libyan. No, he's not Libyan. Okay, he's got an Assyrian title as a name. His name is Shoshenq, or Shoshak, could be one or the other, and that's Ish-She-Ak. There's two SH's in it. Ish-She-Ak, Shoshak, And what they look at this account, and the beginning of the account, they've got three things with Z's in them, or two with Z and another thing. It's just dots, lacuna. And they say, that's Gaza, one other city. And then all of a sudden, it's up in Lebanon. And all the rest of the campaign, so they've got him going north, this Shoshenq, going north for 3 battles. And then he comes down and he's fighting something like 140 battles heading south. Whereas, you see, it's the Assyrian campaign. The Assyrians started it in Lebanon. These Zeds could be like Akzaf, could be Tyre, which is actually Tur, or Sidon, which is actually Zidon, and coming down, I can't tell you what they were. All I know is there are 3 of them in a row, or 2 out of the 3. So they're coming down there. They start in Lebanon and they come down, and it gets more and more detailed. It just ramifies like a root network going down. And I don't know if any other campaign in the history of the world was like this Assyrian campaign, because it ends up in the Negev. And the Negev is basically semi-desert and desert. And here's what the Assyrians said. I can't remember how many cities dude says he destroyed. It's something like cities and forts 143 or something like that. I don't know if there'd be that many. But there we go. And how many people did he say he deported from there? Sennacherib? He said he deported over 200,000. Now, probably some inflation there, but he deported a lot of people from there. So the only other campaign in history that I know about is this campaign of this Shoshak in Egypt. So the deal is, like if Ramses XI is Ramses III, that repetition of births, that Renaissance era, starts when the Assyrians just got all these Egyptian princes. I don't know how many he captured. But you see, what happened was, this is Ramses III's son. And they had names like Seti-Ho-Hepershaf and Montu-Hepershaf and Itamun and so on and so forth. But when they became kings, following Ramses III, they became Ramses. It was like the later emperors of Rome all became Caesar. But there was originally only one Caesar. They were borrowing on the splendor of dude's name. And it wasn't so much Ramses III's name, but Ramses II's name. ruled parts of 67 years, had this fantastic, glorious empire that headed down to Sudan and all the way up into possibly, according to his own accounts, up into Turkey. So, present-day Turkey. And so what happened is the Assyrians, when they got unhappy with the state of affairs in southern Egypt, you know, in 688 BC, for example, which would be the 32nd year on a sensible chronology, the chronology that I've been able to come up with the help of the Assyrian annals. 688 BC, they're not happy. So they're going, okay, you know, dude's dead, Ramses III's dead. We got to make sure one of his sons, who we have as hostages here, is ruling for us. And so they come down and put Ramses IV, right, on the throne.
Yeah, you still have time.
I still have some time. Good. And so, so I'll just cover one more. You won't be able to do stuff. Well, you've already done one. So this is one of the little disciples, or whatever you want to call it, of Kenny Kitchen, who did that Sapalulu Uma thing. The Late New Kingdom in Egypt. Morris L. Beerbrier. Skip ML, but I think his first name is Morris. There, can you see it? There we go. So this was published a long time ago. I think dude did his study, Sapalulu Umas, of the Third Intermediate Period around 73. This was published a couple of years later. I suspect this guy was doing something like a master's or maybe even a PhD with Kenny Kitchen in Liverpool. And so this is the stuff that keeps me up at night and also puts me to sleep at night. Just studying, look at these things. These genealogies. This is what this whole thing is about, just genealogy after genealogy after genealogy. It's just amazing. Is this his final one? No, this is his final one. Look at all these people. These were in Thebes, the southern capital of Egypt, during the Third Intermediate Period. And people are interrelated and related. They're marrying their sisters and brothers and cousins and uncles and whatever. So it's all mixed and mashed. And somehow or another, these dudes have managed to make it, you know, like the Third Intermediate Period, which they say lasts from roughly 1200 BC or 1150 BC down to 650 BC. Well, that's that's 500 years. You know, like you know, like that's how much the carbon-14 readings are off. You know, that's Egyptologists insisted that radiocarbon experts calibrate stuff in order for the dates to confirm their dates, to conform to their dates for Egyptian history. That's the 500 years. You know, like it's just made up out of. It's just made out of thin air, stinky air, out of the tombs, the Egyptian tombs. Now here's the deal. You know, like you could say the Third Intermediate Period started 720 BC. That's when Sargon II beat up on the Egyptians, and then he says, in the wake of that, I set up a trade center on the border of Egypt. That would be, I suspect, Tanis, which was also known as Pir Ramesses, the House of Ramses, and you know, the Assyrians weren't going to call it Pir Ramesses. Come on, you know, like House of Ramses, they're fighting the Ramesses. So you can say it went from 720 BC when the Assyrians set up a dynasty there, all the way down to 656 BC. But you see, the 20th dynasty, which is supposed to be the end of the New Kingdom in Egypt, went down to at least 664 BC. You'll actually find a Ramses mentioned in Ashurbanipal's annals for 667, 666 BC. So at least down to 666, 667 BC, probably 664 BC, possibly even down to 650.